we just can't stop talking about Beyonce. I don't really want to harp too much on her specifically, but it's flooding my timeline. My timeline is covered with the tears of right-wing angry white Americans who insist that somehow the song Formation is anti-police and that it's racist. But it's not. And you know why we know it's not? Because there's this lovely thing called Google where you can look up the lyrics. I don't see how talking about how you're proud of your child's hair and your facial features and how you enjoy hot sauce and going to Red Lobster because some cheddar biscuits is banging. I don't see any of that is necessarily racist. No. It's certainly not anti-police. You know why? Because nowhere in the song at all do any of the lyrics reference to Black Lives Matter, to the police, to anti-police, to pigs, to cops, to anything like that at all. So then, of course, you'll hear the conversation, or rather the argument, from those angry right-wing white folks that her standing or sitting or whatever she was doing in the video on top of the cop car, that somehow this was anti-police. No. If you go ahead and YouTube yourself away to footage of Katrina, there were people, black people, standing on top of police cars waiting to be rescued, and they weren't. The scene with the child in the video who is dancing in front of the police in a hoodie, who then raises his hand, who, has his arms stretched out, and we see the line of cops like this. And you want to argue that that somehow had to do with hands up, don't shoot, because you want to continue on with the whole rhetoric that somehow that's the only statement linked to Michael Brown and Ferguson. Whatever you may feel about the Ferguson incident with Michael Brown, the statement hands up, don't shoot does not solely belong to that incident. There were numerous counts through history where black folks surrendered, hands up, and still got gunned down. Numerous times. It's not some conspiracy theory, it's not some made-up story, it's not some, grandiose idea for a TV show. That is facts. It's been a constant thing. And the really sad thing is the fact that so many white Americans can't understand this whole conversation because these things don't happen to you. And then you'll hear the other side of the argument, which is, those white folks are like, well, what about, why do Black Lives matter, but they don't matter to black people? Black people kill black people. Black on black crime. Yeah, white folks kill white folks. You tend to kind of stick with crime in your area. I do kind of wonder why there isn't any anger towards those instances of police brutality towards white folk. When white cops beat on poor white folks. But y'all don't get upset about that because you're so used to just believing absolutely everything the police do because police can't do wrong. Well, I'm sorry. They have a legacy, a history, a legacy of profiling, targeting, and giving longer sentences, the worst treatment possible, specifically to blacks because they are black. That legacy has continued. It is generational. It's been generational. Been there since the inception of the police force. So why should we sit up and trust the police? The reason we don't call them is we don't trust them. You can look at plenty of instances within the last year of where blacks have called the police for their help and end up somebody dies. And they're always unarmed. Can't sit up there and argue with me about the incident of Mario Woods and somehow try and justify it by saying, well, he stabbed somebody. If he did, that's an alleged statement. If he did, he was never granted due process, the same way Michael Brown wasn't given due process. Whether or not he resisted arrest, whether or not he attacked an officer, does not mean that every situation warrants the use of lethal force. But it seems that's the first thing that cops tend to do. You empty your clip into the assailant? Why do you carry a taser? What happened to the don't tase me, bro? What? But it's just the excessive force is overly used, and the insult on top of that is that The media has no problem showing you the slain dead bodies of black people, but we don't see slain dead bodies of white people when it happens to them. Hell, we don't even hear when it happens to y'all. Sorry. Maybe you should take a bigger interest in your community. See, Black Lives Matter isn't about not being for the police. It's about holding the police accountable when they take themselves above the law and think that they aren't to be held in the same regard as us, if not higher. It's when they're protected when they do wrong. It's where they lie and cover up to protect their own. And the sad thing is, you do have police who try and hold their colleagues accountable, and they end up getting targeted, they end up getting fired, they end up getting blackballed, and it's horrible, and that is an issue. And Black Lives Matter is trying to bring awareness to the fact that there is a systemic issue with the police and how they conduct themselves, specifically for their organization, with blacks. But this problem is nationwide with anyone. But y'all don't want to see it though. Whatever. Personally, ain't got nothing to do with the cops. The video is a statement. I don't see how saying stop shooting us is a negative thing. It's a negative thing that we're getting shot. But you know, until white folks have to actually worry about what it feels like to see the police sirens in the back of you while you're driving, and you pray to God they don't pull you over simply because you don't know what that feels like. You don't have to worry about hoping that, you know, the male counterparts in your family and your friends who are black and male can make it home at night just by driving. You don't have to worry about that. You know why? There's no history of racial profiling of whites. None. So it's not something you can relate to. It's not something you can understand. But I swear to goodness, I don't understand why you can't empathize and see that that is wrong. And all these black folks saying it, it can't be a lie. What do we have to gain from it? And every time you want to hold up Dr. King as the example of the good black man, just remember, y'all shot him too.